All right, 3, 2, 1. Live! Live! Coming from my computer to you. This is Ernie. Crypto Ernie. And according to YouTube, there are 383 people online. I don't believe it. I believe that that is one of the old crypto scammers out there trying to extract money from me, going to try to convince me that they can bring the people to me. Oh, just dropped down to 100. That's so funny. Well, I hope you're all having a good day. Today we're going to talk about strategies for trading Bitcoin using a signal service. And we're going to use PatternCast as an example because it is the best signal service out there, period. There is no other that can even come close to competing. Well, I mean, that's a little bit premature. We've only been around for about 2.5 weeks. However, we are on a streak of about 10 out of 11 calls. And this morning was one of those calls. This morning, so far, we have reached about 65% of our target. Price has pulled back almost right to the target. And so what I want to explain are strategies on how you can play signal services like that give you an entry and a target. And while it does hit the entry, it might overshoot it. It might hit that entry right on the button like a laser beam. That happens on PatternCast about probably 50 or 60% of the time. The rest of the time, it may overshoot it a little bit or by a lot, and then come up through the target, through the entry, and then approach the target. And about 70% of the time, it hits 70% of the target. 65% of the time, it hits the target or beyond. On average, we hit over 200% of the target. So in other words, we hit the entire target and then keep on going. And those are just facts. Well, they are the statistical result of PatternCast working over a long period of time. I'm not talking about just Bitcoin. I'm talking about the traditional service, which looks at futures, forex, and equities. But what we're finding is that the Bitcoin PatternCast version, it's the same technology, by the way. The Bitcoin version, I think, is going to exhibit even better results than the traditional assets. Now, what am I trying to say here? If you're looking for a signal service, you want to first of all be able to identify whether it has a statistical edge. Don't believe somebody if they just say, hey, yeah, we have an edge, and when we trade it, this is our results of our trade. If they show you the results of their trade, it's bull crap. Bull cookies, bullshite. It's just plain old bull. You can't show somebody's trading statistics. It means nothing because some people will get in one place, some will get into another, some will hold on, some will get out early, some will take a loss. You don't know. Trading statistics on a signal service they mean nothing. What you're looking for is what the opportunity is. Can a signal service identify an area where price will likely move through? And if it moves through that area, if they can identify the area that it will move through a statistically significant amount of the time, now you've got something. Now you've got something with a real edge. And that's exactly what PatternCast does. So you have to, as a trader, you have to think about that. Okay, so the signal triggered this time. And by the way, our signals only trigger about 35% of the time on the traditional markets. They seem to trigger a little bit more on Bitcoin markets, but we don't have enough data to see what the full breadth of those stats are yet because we've only had the Bitcoin service up for about 2.5 weeks, going on 3 weeks. But over time, it will probably show there's going to be a certain number of time where signals will trigger. Now, we had 3 signals put out last night. One was a breakout, One was a breakdown, and one was a retrace and then in. The one that retraced triggered, overshot a little bit, and then came back up through the entry, and then into the area that that's the meat. That's where we're hoping to profit, for sure, right? But does that mean you can't profit on the overshoot too? Of course you can. As a matter of fact, we're counting on you to do that. And well, why would you? Would you set a stop there, and then if you go through the entry and then go and overshoot and then get stopped out, only to see it to come back up through the target area? That would be dumb. So we don't set stops. You're going to say, oh my God, you don't set stops! Heresy! No. First of all, if you're setting stops and you're worried about your position, then you're trading way too big. Way, way, way too big. We're more interested in managing our profits, not our risk. If we know that a system, by and large, showing statistical evidence that it is going to end up in the profitable area 96% of the time after 4 days, why in hell? Why would we be managing risk? To guarantee a loss? Because that's exactly what it will do. It will guarantee a loss. And this is really the problem with most traders. They are so anxious because of the size of their position mostly, and because of the lack of confidence and not understanding what their edge is, that if it goes below their entry point, they want to put a tight stop to ensure that they will lose. But only lose a little. But they'll lose. They'll lose most of the time. And they'll keep on losing. And then on those trades that do finally come up, they'll probably take quick profits. This is exactly the opposite of the way a trader should be thinking. Exactly the opposite. This is a trader that thinks that way is a trader that has no confidence in the system, has no confidence in their abilities, has no idea what the hell they're doing, doesn't know what the edge is subject to all kinds of emotional attacks, FOMO, etc. And they are going to lose. Those are the people who lose 90% of the time. Or those are the 90% of the people that lose. Which you, that I'm talking to right now, are likely part of. How do you get out of that? Well, you trade with something like PatternCast. You understand what the edge is. You manage your profits. You don't manage your risk or your losers. You take small positions. You buy into weakness. In other words, as price is coming down in a long position or price is going up, you would sell into that. But let's say that it's a buy, right? The signal is for a buy. As it comes down and hits the entry, sure, you can take a position there. You don't take a full-size position. You take a smaller position. You have then planned out where you would add to the trade. All right? So for me in Bitcoin, I usually plan out every 75 to 100 points where I'll add to the trade. And that's exactly what I did here. I had 3 positions. All right? So I add to the trade. Boom, 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 boom. About the same size position. I start off with what I call 5 tranches available to put towards my position. So I take my full-size position size and chop it up into 5 bits. I enter with 1/5, add 1/5, add 1/5. If it keeps on going down, I'll add another 1/5. Because I know the odds are with me that it's going to move up through that trading zone. I've got a 96 percentile statistical history that it will end up in the trading zone at some point during those 4 days. 96%! That means with all those things that I have added to, even if it goes way down below, the chances are that I'm going to profit marvelously, even if it only ends up right above the entry point. Now, then when you take into consideration that 70% of the time it hits 70% of the target, you're shooting for. You're managing your profits to capture these moves. The other great thing about PatternCast is that it has this uncanny ability to capture huge outlier moves, huge ones. About 10% of the moves are well over 1,000, well, over 500% of the target. There is a small percentage that go over 1,000. We've even had one over 1,500% of the target just the other day, as a matter of fact. So, and in those trades, they did pull back first. Then they moved up. Had they pulled back and you were what you were in the past, you would have stopped out and you would have missed out on a $5,000 trade on one contract of heating oil. By trading the way everybody else is telling you to manage your risk, you would have missed out on $5,000 friggin' dollars because you're an idiot. You're managing risk instead of managing your profits. You don't, and the reason why you do that is because you have zero confidence in your strategy, you trade too large, and you don't know what your edge is. With PatternCast, we know all that. The hard part is getting people that come into the service and to retrain them, to like scrub their memories of all the crap that they've accumulated over the years, the broker narrative. And I've talked about the broker narrative in many past videos. The broker narrative is all the training that people are given in terms of technical analysis and price action and Fibonacci's and all this other bullshit designed and originally originating from brokers, and I'll tell you why I know this, from brokers originally for one purpose in mind only, not to make you money, but to get you to trade more. They want you to trade more, faster, more. They don't care if you win. And it's the reason why most people lose. They know that you'll blow up your account in about 90 days on average, that eventually you'll come back and there'll be somebody to take your place to try their hand at it. Because they're degenerate gamblers, most people. Or they think they can beat this system with the broker narrative, with what everyone else is teaching them how to trade. So I can tell you that all the stuff that you see on YouTube about TA and Fibonacci's and price action is exactly what the broker wants you to do. And I can also tell you that it is exactly the opposite of what most pro traders do. Think about that. Just let that sink in. Let it sink in and burn right in here. That is what's happening. That's what's happening. You are getting bamboozled by the broker narrative. How do I know? Well, look at my face. I'm kind of old. Probably older than most of you. Probably have more experience in the financial markets, the technology markets, and business than most of you have ever been alive. Not just any experience. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm just telling you that I know what I'm talking about because I was there when these brokers, I was the person who literally worked with the brokers, their management, their technology, their marketing. I was the technology guy that implemented their ideas to put it in and online. I worked for Charles Schwab and Fidelity back in the 90s. Then I worked for Sun, where we built out most of Wall Street. I worked for most of the sell-side analysts, providing them advice on how they can work their magic. It's what I did. That's how I know what their plan is, what their whole philosophy revolves around getting you to trade a lot. Because that's how they make their money, with commissions. It costs them more to support you as a customer. They don't want you making money. They don't want you holding on to positions and riding them. From a margin perspective, from a cost perspective, you are a loser to them. So, PatternCast gives you an edge. We know we have a good idea of where price is going to be going. Reasonable confidence, because the system, a pattern recognition technology, works strictly off of statistical evidence. It doesn't take fake or imaginary lines and say this is where support and resistance are. And that's what they are. Trend lines and moving averages, they're imaginary. They do not provide support and resistance. That's another broken narrative. It's bullshit. Now, volume profile, on the other hand, there's something real. I mean, that's showing you where the market finds value and doesn't find value. There you can determine where support and resistance are very easily with volume profile. But PatternCast, what it does is it goes back and it can look at not just one strategy, like most signal services are using a strategy, maybe 2 or 3 strategies at most. PatternCast doesn't have a particular strategy. What it has is the ability to dynamically generate hundreds of thousands of strategies and patterns that it will then match up in an asset all the way back through its history, and then be able to compare it with the developing price action and market as it is today, and say, oh, that's happened 5, no, 20, maybe 50 times before. And say, out of those 50 times, 45 of the times, if it did this, then it did that. And it will alert us to those type of situations and give us the stats and say, this has happened like 50 times before, and there was a 92% probability that if it reached down to this level, that it would shoot up and give you, 800 points. You say, well, that's pretty good information. I think I'll do that. That's exactly what PatternCast does. It provides what-if scenarios based on statistical evidence that this has happened before, similar situations, and then alerts us to them. So a lot of times it will give us just nonsense. Like, it would have to break out like 1,000 points and then you should go in. Or it'd have to break down 2,000 points, then you should go in. You say, it's not going to do that. Well, PatternCast saw that in the past and said, well, if it did do that, there would be a really good trade. And that happens sometimes too, and usually those things don't pan out, but when they do, there's a very, very high probability that they will. Sometimes it says, well, if it just like pulls back to here, it's likely to go up 600 points. That happens a lot. Or if it rises to here, it's very likely to drop 800 points, and that happens a lot too. See, the thing is, PatternCast doesn't know anything about stocks or assets or Bitcoin or futures or Forex or any equities. It knows nothing about them. All it knows is it has kind of a lexicon that we've taught it, little bits and pieces of information that it combines together, and it can look at assets with 20 years of data and then see hundreds of thousands of potential strategies throughout there and recognize them in a flash like that because of the technology. It's like up in the cloud, we have all these like working matrices that are working on the problem simultaneously. And then, bam, we can scan hundreds of assets in a matter of a couple of minutes, looking at hundreds of thousands of strategies and patterns in each one of them. Comparing it to what is developing now compared to what happened in the past. And that's what it does. All right. Where are we? Olai says, haha, spot on. My trading has changed 180 degrees since I've joined PatternCast and started managing all the profit. What's your thoughts on the morning pump we had, Ernie? Looks like we hit the bottom of that upper volume node and now have retraced the lower area. Do you see us hanging here for a while? I don't know. Maybe. All I know is that I've already profited off of the trade. And we can take a look at what that trade was right now. And I'll give you how, what's the strategy that I would use for attacking a trade like this. Because I can tell you what most people would do. So behind me, I'm going to show you this right here. Behind me, there were two trades. There was one trade that was, yesterday's trade. This is today's trade. And I've shown the entry and then the target. And then the sort of the purple box area, that's like the target area. That's where we'd expect price to move up through. And then this other area down here, the blue area, is where it overshot the entry. So we got this signal right about here yesterday, right? And so during that time, it dropped down a little bit below the entry, and I took a position right at that point, 1/5 the size. It shot up a little bit for some temporary profit, only up to, now the entry was 10,304, shot up to as high as 10,034, and then it dropped all the way down to just above 10,000, 10,054. Well, was I looking to get out? No friggin' way. Because I know that there's a 96% chance that I'm going to end up somewhere in that purple area. Why would I get out? I see that as an opportunity. So I entered two more trades. I didn't get all the way at the bottom. My lowest trade was right around 10,200. And so I rode them up. And I rode them up, and it went up as high as 10,523. Almost 500 points. Call from unknown. Now, I didn't get out right there. It started to pull back. I did have I did get out of a little bit. I had a take profit off of one of the positions. But then it started to pull back here. And then it got down to this volume node, and I took the rest off. Now it's come back down to the entry again. I got into it with another 5th size position. And I'm going to see if this will ride up again. All right. I've already made a crap load of profit off of this trade. About 350 points. Well, no, about 300 points. Sorry. With about a 2/5 size position. Somewhere around there. Not a bad trade. Now I'm in it again. Let's see if it will move up and see if we can realize the target. It may. I don't know. But that's how I trade it. I buy into weakness, sell into strength. Knowing where my targets are, knowing the statistics, knowing my edge. That's how I trade. Every once in a while, we'll get a move that just keeps on going, and I'll have a few positions on. It will get above the target. I might add to it even if it gets above the target, and then Then I might move a stop up there. See if it will run, because a lot of times that's what happens. It gets above the target and then just keeps on running. And then I'll manage that profit. Have you given up on the mini bubble pop? The mini bubble pop scenario? No, I mean, nothing's changed. Why would I give up on the mini bubble pop? And layered orders all the way to 10,100, sold half around 10,500 and still holding half now. Should have sold everything in your opinion? Yeah, probably, but look, You can sell now and still have, sell the rest off and still have plenty of profit. So your average entry now is at 10,200. You've already taken profit. You're in profit with the current position. Yeah, I guess, maybe put a stop right underneath to to guarantee that you'll at least get maybe 100 points out of the deal. That's probably what I would do. So you already have profit from before. You have the rest of that. And maybe if it drops again, add some more. We got, all day here. Once the day's over, this signal is done. All right. So PatternCast is available on PatternCast.com. If you get into a yearly program, you can save big money by using a coupon code CRYPTO, CRYPTO, crypto. You'll get at least about a third off of the price. If you pay in crypto, I'll rebate you another $200 in Bitcoin. So you'll get a total of $600 off on the price. With the way PatternCast trades and its edge, it's very likely that within a couple of trades that you'll make back the entire yearly membership fee. Then you get a whole year to manage more profits. All right, so let me recap, what the strategy is for trading signals. First of all, know what the edge is. Know what the statistical performance of that signal is. Have an understanding of how it works so you can develop some confidence in the way it works. Have some understanding of the way price moves. Very rarely does something just come down and hit the entry and go right to the target. In PatternCast, that happens about maybe 35% of the time, maybe 25, where it goes down, hits, boom, like the perfect trade. The rest of the time, it overshoots in both directions. And goes up and down, retraces, and then finally maybe ends up or down. Who knows? So you have to take that into consideration. That has to all be part of your strategy. You can't think that you're going to have the perfect trade every time, because then you are managing risk. You're trying to bet on the perfect price action, which never happens. Ever. Well, it does, but so infrequently that if you tried to do that, then you're going to be the loser. So it's not hard. It really isn't. Buy into weakness, sell into strength. Understand where the entries and the targets are. Understand the statistics. Trade small. Trade in tranches. Add a little bit as you're going down or going up if it's a short. Scale out as it's coming up. Leave some to let it run just in case. Because if it runs and you have a 1,500% winner, you want some skin in the game to benefit from that. All right? Now, if you like this video, and if you like this style of trading, it's super simple. I mean, I can set most of this stuff up the night before with trades and not have to spend a whole lot of time watching this. But I'm in the business, so I do watch it. Occasionally, I set them up and then I go do something else, like mow the lawn, take the dogs for a walk, watch a movie, read a book, make money. All right. That's all we have for today. Please go down, click on the like button, share this video out on your social media. We'd really appreciate it. And I want to thank you very much for being here. And we shall see you. I got to find the stop button. We shall see you next video.